really don't pull many punches in this book. You talk about race, you talk about the league, you talk about ownership and so forth. But I want to talk about investing. You have gotten into it in a serious way.
Yes.
In reading your book, you are a highly competitive guy. You're competitive with your brother. You're competitive because you always felt like you had something to prove. Is competitiveness an asset or a detriment as an investor?
Well, that's a very good question. One of my favorite shows is Billions, and you see that the competitiveness is taking people out of their human state, and they start
That's what I was interested in.
Attacking each other.
Because sometimes I think competitiveness could lead you to think, I'm going to prove that damn market wrong.
Yes, but it can be used to your advantage if you do it the right way. You know, you have the reverence for your profession or for your job, and you try to use it as a way to help everyone involved. And at the end of the day, it's for me, it's thirst of knowledge. So I'm really competitive with how much knowledge I can gain on a day-to-day basis. If it's someone that knows more than me, I'm not going to be competitive with them, but I would like to put them in my circle so I can learn as much from them as possible.
So one of our producers had a very interesting question, and it was this. Were you always interested in investing, and particularly in the kinds of tech companies that you have seemed to lean toward, or did coming to play for the Golden State Warriors, hard by Silicon Valley, where I'm sure some of the ownership group has made their money in technology shares, is that what led you to some of the companies and investments that you made? Was it the proximity?
It was all before. So you hear a lot about free agency in basketball and players going from this team to that team, and how does loyalty play in, you know, an athlete staying with his team versus a team trading a player and a player having the ability to play in the market he wants to play in. And before I got to the Golden State Warriors, I was always interested in business and how the business world worked from a young age as a kid. But my background and my environment, you didn't see too many African Americans having their own businesses, and it was never taught to us how to run your own business. So when you get to the NBA, there's a lot of work done to emphasize guys learning how to handle their finances and handle their wealth to last the rest of their careers. But none of us we had no, you know, previous teachings of that. You know, they don't have a tax class in high school.
They should.
They should. So for me, it was learning to make the most of my time. I didn't know how long I'd be in the NBA. You know, you don't know if you're going to be there for 2 years. You don't know if you're going to be there for 15 years. You know, I've been blessed and fortunate to be for 15 years. So early on, I told myself, ask as many questions as possible. You know, there's no such thing as a dumb question. So early on, I wanted to learn as much as possible about finances. And then from there, it was how does investing work? And I was able to start my own E-Trade account. From there, led to very, very small investments. And I found I had some success in tech companies, and you know, I'm learning about publicly traded companies because that's the E-Trade account. And then you learn who was coming up next, like which companies are going to come to the public markets next. And then, you know, the light bulb goes off. Oh, okay, there's a thing called a private market. And then there's many series of rounds of investing in those markets. And then, you know, you got seed rounds and you got startup rounds. So that led me to being a free agent. And it was a perfect opportunity where it was a great basketball team. And then, you know, you were right after the recession, and the markets were kind of, or the private markets and the investment worlds were coming right back up. And it was just kind of the perfect marriage at the right time.
I'm looking at some of your, I don't know if you looked at the market today, but some of these, you know, Zoom and PagerDuty, you're involved in these companies. I think you said you have a business partner for a lot of this as well.
Yes.
You're on the board of Jumia, which people call the Amazon of Africa. So this is sort of the Andre Iguodala portfolio today. What's it going to look like in 5 or 10 years' time?
Oh, I hope it's 10 times larger than it is now. Well, I was very conservative early on in how much money I invested in the companies because I didn't want to take too much risk because I'm learning. But my portfolio has done really well. You look at Zoom and you look at PagerDuty. Great
IPOs.
They're like 1 and 2 on their growth since they've IPO'd in the entire markets. And you look all across, Uber and Lyft have gotten a little bit of riff as far as they haven't done it as well as people expected. But a lot of tech companies are doing really well, and they're pretty much holding the market up and keeping it on the up and up.
You know, you talk a lot in the book about really how hard it is to do what you do. The wear and tear on your body, the work you have to put in the gym. And you are a fanatic workout guy, weightlifter, and so forth. I think, I'm not going to speak for all NBA fans, but I'm going to speak for myself. I was saddened that you guys in the finals were not able to play with your best team because you lost two critical players in the middle of it, two really devastating injuries as they come through it. I want to read something. We have that quote that's from page 132 of the book. Can we put it up? We have it. You're literally trading your body for cash, not just for yourself, but cash to go into the pockets of other already wealthy, mostly all-white male owners. You really have to wonder if it's worth it. But then in the same passage, later on in that passage, you say, and I've underlined it here, but the thing was, those difficult moments, those dark nights and painful days, I didn't think I was doing them in exchange for money. I still don't. I was doing them in exchange for playing a sport that I loved, truly and deeply loved. Do you do it for love or you do it for money?
I play basketball because I actually love it. I put myself in a position to, I don't have to play anymore. You know.
Oh, that feels so good for me too. I don't have to either. It's great. I can walk out of here today.
And it's interesting. A lot of players who have a consciousness about themselves, who have a good sense of balance, good sense of self, they really don't enjoy the money as much. You know, they're not as flashy. They don't buy, you know,
11
really
cars
expensive things. You know, they live simpler lives. They enjoy nice things, but the lives are a little bit simpler. So, you know, my day-to-day cost or month cost is well below. I live well below my means. So I don't need the money. I don't enjoy the money as much as people think we do. But I do enjoy the interactions, the relationships, the impact that I can have on a teammate who's 19, 20 years old is far more worth, you know, the salary that comes in because, you know, it's kind of like generational wealth in terms of knowledge and what he'll be able to give to his kids. And, you know, it's generational after that.
One basketball question on that note, if you'll allow me, is
Yes.
should the season be much shorter? You know, do you feel like the owners are exploiting you guys to some extent by forcing the length of the season? And you, again, you've been in the lucky position of having played so many playoffs where that wear and tear really adds up. But what about making it shorter? There's already so many guys taking 20% of the season off already.
Well, then that turns into 20% less of the season, 20% less on your paycheck. And I'm sure a lot of guys prefer a bigger paycheck. You know, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to wake our guys up to, my peers, is that it is a business first. And what we've been taught our whole lives is you're playing for this, you know, this big trophy, and you have to sacrifice for this trophy. But in the grand scheme, it's the bottom line, you know. And I think Adam Silver's doing a really good job of making sure our league's technology, we're one of the most forward-thinking leagues in all the sports. He's looking into our mental health, making sure there's a right balance. At the end of the day, it's having the right balance, you know, understanding that it's a business and you have to network, and the league's going to use your likeness to make more money for the league, which in turn we get 50% of. So we want the pot to grow, but we don't want to seem like we're being as exploited. But
so you're okay with, even though de facto, you know, taking a lot of the season off, like Tyler mentioned, the injuries that kind of plagued everybody at the end there. But
I'm a basketball purist, and I don't think you can change the schedule because historically it's been 82 games, and Michael Jordan is the template for me. He's the greatest basketball player of all time. No one will ever surpass him, and will surpass him. And he played 82 games, 80% of his career.
You know.
So he's the yardstick. So if Mike could get through it, we can get through it.
So you're involved. A couple things come to mind. Go quickly here. You're involved with the NBA Players Association.
Yes.
There's a labor agreement that expires in a few years.
Yes.
Is the revenue split equitable? Are players being treated fairly?
I believe so. There are things that could be altered to help us, and there's always going to be push and pull back from both sides. But like I said, in terms of, I feel like our league's always ahead of the curve. And Adam Silver,
the most progressive
yes,
of the
very
leagues.
progressive. And Adam Silver is a players commissioner, if that's a term. I could text him after a game about an issue I had during the game, and he would text me right back. So we stay ahead of controversies pretty well. Whenever there's an altercation, we had an altercation in one of our games in the finals.
With one of your ownership
group. One of our ownership group, and they nipped it in the bud.
And he jumped it.
Yes, today they were speaking in terms of changing the language of what we call the NBA owner. We call him an owner, or what we call him a large equity investor.
Proprietor,
right? They're thinking about changing the name of that with the
because of the sensitivities,
racial sensitivities. So Adam's always ahead of the curve, and I think he's doing a great job.
So what's your team going to look like?
And Michelle Roberts is doing a great job too. She's the first woman to lead a union, and she leads our union. She does a great job.
What's your team going to look like next year?
We're going to be good, actually. We're flying under the radar because we have some devastating injuries, but we got the top training staff. I feel like in sports, and they'll have Clay back in around February, March. KD might miss the whole season, but for him, it's good to get away from the game.
You want to tell us where they're going to re-sign?
I think they'll both be back with the Golden State Warriors. We're like brothers.
Wow.
We keep in contact, but regardless of any of that. If both did decide to leave, they would still be my brother. I still keep in contact with them as much as possible, and I just wish the best for both of those guys. They come back full strength.
You're crushing the Knicks fans out here with this kind of.
Nobody's going to the Knicks. Sorry.
Nobody.
Nobody's going. None of my guys are.
All right, I got a couple more questions.
Yes.
You did the best lockdown defensive job ever on LeBron James. Basically won you a
I did
MVP.
okay.
You did okay.
I did okay.
Who's tougher to defend, LeBron or Kawhi?
Oh, that's pretty good.
You played him in this series.
Yes. Kawhi was laboring a little bit this series. He still played amazing. But LeBron is probably one of the tougher guys I had to defend. His strength, and LeBron's able to make all his teammates take them to another level in terms of their play. He enhances all of his teammates like no other player I've ever seen.
Well, it's kind of what like people say about you.
Yes.
That you're a pass first, score second guy.
But LeBron's able to do that and get 30 points, which makes him you're kind of scared to help. So it's kind of like you're on an island with him. But overall, Kobe Bryant's the hardest hat to guard.
That's really fascinating.
Yes.
That's really fascinating.
Yes.
I assume you saw the draft night where Zion Williamson teared up.
Yes.
Did it make you think of your mom?
Yes.
Because your mom.
My mom
She was a formidable person.
Yeah, she's 6 feet tall. She's tough.
Yeah.
So
you tell a story of her banging somebody.
Yeah. She banged my brother a few times when he got out of line, but he was bigger than her at the time. I'll make sure I put that in there. But my mother was a very strong woman. She was kind of the foundation of who I am in terms of having the proper views on walking out the house and being intelligent, being able to speak the part, knowing my environment and be able to adapt.
And went to work in the winter in Springfield with no coat.
Yes,
so you and your brother could have warm clothes.
Yes, Linda was a tough one.
Andre, thanks. Good luck next year.
Thanks.